So 5-1 MVP, and number 5 at MVP is just like a fascinating
It's incredible.
vote here.
I don't like it.
Who do you have at number 5?
I went Donovan Mitchell, and I don't love it.
Sure. I have Mitchell at 6 for what it's worth, so I
Yes.
don't hate this.
My guess is we flip who we have at 5. I won't spoil that right now. I didn't put him at 5 initially. I went ahead and moved it. Listen, I know even within Cavs people, I feel like there's this Donovan Mitchell versus Darius Garland. Blah. I watch the Cavs, and I think Donovan Mitchell is the engine of that offense, of that team. I realize there's a little bit of like recency with what he did to the Celtics the other night, but just in general, every time I turn on a Cavs game, I walk away saying Donovan Mitchell is the best player on this team. They are the, if not one of the best teams in the NBA. And he's been really good in terms of 46, 40, 82, rebounds a little bit, creates a little bit, defensively neutral a little bit more. Like he can do some stuff on the defensive end. I went with Donovan Mitchell here. I would legitimately listen to a multitude of other names, though.
So the reason that we know Donovan Mitchell is the Cavs' best player is that he gets treated like he's the best player from the opposing teams.
So this is fun. I'm glad you went here, because watching the Celtics the other night, I said, who is Derek White guarding right now? And it was Donovan Mitchell. It was not Darius Garland.
Correct. Because they are most worried about him getting loose. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. It's totally good. We can just say that, and we don't have to be like beholden to the numbers. Another piece of this, by the way, for me is that, and we'll talk about Darius when it comes to all NBA. Like, Darius is great against, I don't know, like 27 teams in the league. He struggles against a few teams because of his size defensively. Like the Celtics, he is their least valuable player for me against the Celtics in that matchup. And that's okay. Like, he's still a great player. But of their 4 stars, like, he's the one that struggles the most to me because they attack him pretty relentlessly. And how do you weigh that versus weighing, any other multitude of factors? I actually think Donovan Mitchell does a better job defensively on Tatum than what a lot of guys do. He's really good at getting underneath Tatum and making his life like kind of harder to get to his spots. So combining both the offense and the defense, to me, I would say that Mitchell is their best player. And I have no problem with Mitchell at 5. I have Mitchell at 6. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another. I do think, for what it's worth, there are clear names at 5 and 6 right now for me.
So I will say, for me personally, I debated between him and another name. I'm just saying, I think for other people, they would include others as well. And I would listen to it because I'm not so steadfast in these two. The other name I have, I think, I would have to go through it. I haven't done it. I think he's probably the only player with the distinction in the NBA of being his team's best defensive player and his team's best offensive player right now. And I don't know if anybody else has that, but that might not even be the same name for you. And so, to your point, we may not even be talking about the same guys.
Well, Giannis is the guy. Giannis is the best defensive player and offensive.
Oh, okay. Yep. There you go. So that's the other name. There you go.
Yep. That'd be the other name. But the name here is Jaren Jackson.
Okay. So we're talking about the same person. So yes.
Yeah. So I have Jaren Jackson right now at 5th.
Sure.
And to me, a big reason for that is that Jaren Jackson's averaging 23.6 rebounds, 2 assists. Doesn't look, like MVP-ish numbers to me, right? Part of this is that, well, Luka's gone, Wemby's gone, AD's gone. We have a number of guys here who are not eligible for these awards. But Jaren Jackson is also, for me, because Wemby is gone, spoiler alert, the defensive player of the year so far this year. Yeah. So you combine having the best defensive player in the NBA with a guy that is a mismatched nightmare on offense now, is averaging 23 points, shooting 50, 37, 77 from the field. That's a really, really great season that I think has gone way under the radar. And oh, by the way, the Memphis Grizzlies to this point are quite good. They're sitting here, basically in a dead heat with the Nuggets and Lakers, and I guess the Rockets to some extent, but they're a game and a half behind second. But the Grizzlies, Lakers, and Nuggets are in basically a dead heat right now for the second seed. And a big reason for why I will have LeBron very high. I have LeBron at 7 right now for what it's worth, which is crazy given how he started the season defensively. But I have Jaren at 5 because I think he's been a little bit more consistent throughout the year on both ends than LeBron at the end of the day. He has been spectacular to me in leading this Grizzlies team. And oh, by the way, as well, Jaren Jackson has played 58 games this year. He's been like, he and Jalen Wells have been the two constants for the Memphis Grizzlies. Like those two guys have missed 2 games combined this year for that team. And they've had a lot of, ins and outs of the lineup, right? Like Desmond Bane has missed 12 games and, John Morant has missed 23 games. Another guy that's not eligible here, by the way. Santi Aldama's missed 8 games. Luke Kennard's missed 13 games. They traded Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia. Zach Edey has missed 14 games.
GG missed the whole start of the season.
Vince Williams missed the whole start of the season.
Vince.
There's just a lot of dudes that really, really have been in and out of that group. So Jaren Jackson being the constant of this group, leading them to 38 wins 2/3 of the way through the season, is a really, really impressive thing to me. And, it's not to take anything away from LeBron, Donovan Mitchell or anything, but I think that his ability to play on both ends has really, really made the Memphis Grizzlies stable and able to continue to compete at the highest level.
I'm in. Like I initially, when I just first did it, I had him there. I moved it the other day. I may be like he had 45 the other night too. So I probably, I don't know that it's just a bias thing. Let's play a real quick game. This is per 36 minutes, Sam. Who averages more points per 36 minutes, Jaren Jackson Jr. or Donovan Mitchell?
I would have guessed Donovan.
Donovan by 0.1 points per 36 minutes. How about Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Anthony Edwards?
I would guess Ant by a little bit.
Jaren Jackson Jr. by 1 point per 36 minutes. How about Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Jason Tatum?
I would definitely have guessed Tatum.
Jaren Jackson Jr. by 1.5 points per 36. The only people we're about to talk to that average more points per 36 minutes than Jaren Jackson Jr. are SGA, Giannis, Jokic, and Donovan Mitchell by 0.1 points per 36 minutes. I think
it's amazing.
The reason it's important is because we know how good he is defensively, which you've already highlighted just a little bit. The offensive growth, the two-way play is unbelievable from Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say on that, though, the per 36 numbers, is that Jaren does sometimes take himself off the court with foul trouble.
We'll talk
and I think
about
that is a negative more than a positive, honestly.
Sure. Yep.
But part of it is because he's playing so hard on defense all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is really, really difficult. That's a really, really hard job to be the best defender in the league and also be like a top, 10 scorer in the NBA on a permanent basis. It's pretty wild how impressive he has been.
Yes, I agree. He is number 6 for me. No question, for what it's worth.
Yeah. And now for what it's worth, we'll talk about LeBron later. If you made me bet, I would bet you that LeBron ends up in this spot at the end of the year.
Sure.
Because of the way that they're playing. And I think that they're probably the favorite right now to end up at the number 2 seed. Okay. Yeah. Now we have the top 4. We all know that the top 4 in some order is Jason Tatum, Shai, Giannis, and Jokic. Who do you have at 4?
I still have Tatum.
Okay. I have Giannis at 4. So this is fun.
Okay.
So we'll talk about Tatum versus Giannis here. You give me the Tatum pitch.
Well, listen,
or the Tatum pitch at 4.
Yeah, my thing is with him, I do think he goes underrated in terms of just his all-around value to the Boston Celtics in terms of rebounding the basketball, his passing, even things he does on the defensive end. I think all of that is really, really special with Tatum, even beyond the shot making that we see. So I think like this has been the top 4 all year. I don't think there's like tunnel vision or anything like that from people who continue to have this as the top four. I don't know that anybody's done anything to crack the top four. And I don't know any of these
I
guys.
don't think so.
I don't think any of these guys have done anything to be like, oh, they're not deserving of it. You know, why, the thing with him and Giannis, I think my one argument would just be the minutes played, the games played, right? Between the two, in terms of, you highlighted Giannis is kind of borderline here, whether he ends up eligible for this stuff, where Tatum has played 58 games. I still just think, and you brought it up earlier whenever I brought up the Jaren Jackson Jr., Giannis is unequivocally the best offensive player on that team and the best defensive player on that team. And maybe that defensive impact is enough of a separation for me between Giannis and Tatum, even though Tatum does some things offensively that Giannis just can't with some of the shooting and all of that.
On a per minute basis, I would have Giannis third. It really is the difference for me in games played. Like,
sure,
Tatum has played 11 more games than Giannis this year. That's a substantial amount. Like, he has played 500 more minutes than Giannis this year, and just being available does really matter, in my opinion. Like, that availability for that extra 500 minutes has helped the Boston Celtics be a better team than the Milwaukee Bucks this year, in my opinion.
Real quick, Giannis will have played the least amount of minutes of any player we talk about, probably till we get to most improved, maybe rookie of the year. Like, of these guys, he's played the least amount. Well, maybe some defensive guys, but in this conversation,
Kevin Durant is pretty close. I think Kevin has actually played a bit fewer, or no, he's played a little bit more. It's close.
Actually, Steph is the next closest, actually, in terms of minutes. So just to your points, he's played the least of the names we're about to discuss.
Yeah. So that's why I have him fourth. If it was a like pure per minute, like that you're on the court, I think Giannis is a more effective basketball player right now than Jason Tatum. But Tatum has played 500 more minutes than Giannis, and that is a big jump to me. Like, that, playing 10 more games than somebody, that's literally like he has played like 1.33 seasons compared to Giannis's one at this point. That's a big jump, in my opinion. Personally, if you want to have it, if you want to do it different, I completely understand it. But I think we've like kind of underrated Tatum's year on some level. He's averaging 27 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 46, 36, 80. They have also dealt with like a lot of guys coming in and out of the lineup, and they're still sitting here at 42 and 18. Like, Jaylen Brown has missed 10 games. Drew Holiday's missed 13 games. Porzingis has missed half the year. Horford's missed 13 games as they've tried to like get him some rest here and there. It feels like he is, again, the one constant that is always available. I also think we underrate him defensively.
Yeah.
He is not on my all defense teams. He is an honorable mention for me, all defense wise, because he's so good in help defense. He's so good at being able to consistently impact the game off of the ball defensively. And he's quite good on the ball defensively. He's not like amazing on the ball. He's a good oddball defender as well.
Yeah, I think what I've learned to appreciate more with Tatum as I watch more games, and I really just got into this level of stuff last season whenever I joined Game Theory, is just his all-around impact. And I think he's grown with some of that. It wasn't just stuff that I was missing. I think he's continued to improve and get better. But as I mentioned, the rebounding, the passing and creation, and I do like the defense is impressive. And I think when we get to the all defense conversation, I think one thing in general, not solely, but in general, was I kind of realized I value versatility of defenders, either defenders that are good on and off the ball, or defenders that are causing disruption, but also being solid and like those type of things, not just good at one specific thing, like not just a really good drop coverage big or something like that. I don't know if that's what NBA teams value. Each team's probably going to be a little bit different, but Tatum does have that, to your point.
Yeah. Okay. Giannis now. Giannis has been just as unbelievable this season to me. He is averaging 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 60% from the field. Like, again, another guy that we just take for granted. I feel like his true shooting percentage, it's 8% above league average, despite the fact that he is the number one option every single night for the Milwaukee Bucks. He is the most dominant offensive force outside of Jokic in the NBA. He is capable of getting downhill and getting to his shot. He's added to his game this year with that little mid-range jumper.
Yep.
I think that the decision making honestly has been a little bit better this season than what it's been in the past for him. Because he doesn't have to just like recklessly drive all of the time, because he's comfortable like stopping in that, 15 to 20 foot range now. He's not as like downhill and like can get the blinders from time to time. I think that's why you see the turnover rate down to its lowest level since 2022 for Giannis. Giannis has been unbelievable. If you want to have Giannis third, I completely get it. I have no beef with any pick along those lines. I just, at the end of the day, like he's played 47 and, 500 minutes less than Tatum. And I think Tatum's been unbelievable this year too.
I think that's fair. I don't know that I took that into account maybe as much as I should have, or, I essentially was just like, okay, what guys aren't eligible, right? Like, and I put in 45 for my number. And to your point, Wemby's over 45, but I know Wemby's not going to make it. I'm glad you brought up the mid-range jumper. I watched games this year where it's just like, especially when he can dribble into it. And I'm interested if there's a way for teams to take this away. Like if they pick up on this and it's like, okay, we'll let you shoot the fadeaway. We'll let you shoot the catch and shoot, but we're not going to let you dribble from 22 feet into a 16-footer just comfortably. Like we're going to stun at you or do something to take that away, because he looks very comfortable and confident when he can do that. I also don't think he gets enough credit for like the nuance of his drives, like Euro steps, spin moves, through contact, scoop, quick finishes, all of that. I know he draws foul. I know sometimes it is just like downhill through contact and people don't love it, but there is nuance with his drives as well. And again, been a really good defender also for a team that has snuck up into the top 10 in defensive rating at this point.
100%. Yeah, I very strongly considered Giannis for all defense.
He's my first name off the top 10 is what he ended up for me. So
yeah, he has been absolutely fantastic on that end this season too. Look, like there's only so many plaudits you can give to Giannis, in my opinion. Like he's an all-time great. He's going to be a top 20 player of all time. He's right in the prime of his career. He is incredible. He is absolutely unbelievable at basketball. Giannis has been in the top 4 of MVP for each of the last 6 years of his career. And this year will be the 7th, assuming that he hits the game's eligibility, which is the only real question remaining at this point, is if he hits the game's eligibility. He's either going to finish 3rd or 4th in MVP, and it's going to be well deserved. And I don't have anything else to say about Giannis. He's been incredible.
Yeah, that's an amazing run. I was looking how LeBron did it 12 years in a row. So
it's incredible. Yeah, LeBron is a total joke.
We'll talk about him.
So Shai and Jokic here are the top 2. Which direction did you go?
I stayed with Jokic. I've stayed with Jokic. What it comes down to me, Sam, and this isn't like high level, I just think he's the best player in the world. I just do.
I think he is too.
And now that they've won some games, I think it's a little bit easier. Obviously, they're still way behind the Thunder. I get it. I understand all of that. I love SGA. I've wanted to so many of these to come on and make the SGA argument, and I just can't do it in good faith, even though I think it's very much like it is a debate. Like SGA deserves to be where he's at. It's just for me, I think Jokic is the best basketball player in the world. And because of that, if it's a tiebreaker or whatever, that's what I believe, because the individual counting numbers are silly for both.
I really think this might be the best offensive season I've ever seen from Jokic. Like, I can't even begin to fathom how good he has been on offense this year. 16% above league average in terms of true shooting. He is averaging 29, 13, and 10.5, shooting 58, 44, 82. I kind of assumed at some point that the shooting would tail just slightly. It has a little bit. It was at like, what was it, like 47?
But
the last time we did this.
Yeah.
It's now at 44. I mean, he's just a monster. He is so good across the board. He is unbelievable on offense. The way that he dictates the game, he is the most, to me, he could score every time down the court if he wants to.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, he could.
I've seen games where it's just like, okay, I'm not going to score tonight. I don't need to. And it's like, I'm just going to go pass a lot and be really good doing that. And just watching him pick apart teams with that. And, it's tough for me because it's like, do you give all of these Nuggets players credit for being elite off the ball cutters? Or have they become elite off the ball cutters because they play with Nikola Jokic? And when you play with somebody like that, you either figure it out or you don't play. And so, like, I love giving Christian Brown, and we'll talk about him later when most approved, at least for me. I love giving him credit for being an elite off the ball cutter, but there is a little bit of like, guys are going to become that when you play with a guy that processes and again, I always like to bring this up with Jokic. I think I'm probably higher. I don't think he's like some like defensive player or whatever. I love his hand activity. I think young bigs could learn from watching Nikola Jokic's hand activity. I'm not saying he's always in a stance. I'm not always saying that he's like playing super hard, but if you watch his hand activity and his understanding, okay, the roll man's here, the ball handler's here. If I put my hand here, he can't make that pass or I'm going to get a deflection. I always love watching the way he like maps the floor defensively as well.
I will say, we have hit that stretch of the season that often happens around this time of the year for Jokic.
Yeah.
Where I don't want to say that like he completely turns it off on defense because that's unfair.
Oh, there's some possessions.
There are some possessions that are pretty rough for Jokic on defense.
Completely
where
fair.
like he will just choose not to close out. He will say, okay, I'm just not going to make a second effort on this play because I need to keep myself fresh for the playoffs. And that's a real factor. And Shai doesn't do that. Like I think Shai is a little bit overrated on defense by people who have him like as an all defense guy. I don't quite have him there. I think he's a really, really good defender. I think that he plays his role at a very high level, but like the effort is always there for Shai. Like you never have to worry about that. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I have them basically 1A, 1B. I went slightly with Jokic over Shai this time. I think that we are somehow, in some way, taking for granted the fact that this guy is averaging almost a 30-point triple-double on 50, 40, 84, or whatever it is. That's impossible. That is breaking basketball in a way that like I have never seen it broken on offense. To the level to which the defense would have to be you'd have to be, to me, like a top 10 defender in the league. And I love Shai on that end. I just don't have him there. In addition to being what Shai is as a scorer in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't think Shai is far off of that, which is why I have them like 1A, 1B. And I think this thing is wide open down the stretch.
Yeah.
I think that this thing could go any direction in terms of like who wins MVP down the stretch. I am guessing at some point that Kendrick Perkins will make a case for LeBron to win MVP down the stretch because that will happen. But Jokic and Shai, to me, are the two very clear picks here.
Yeah.
If you want to go Shai because of the defense and because of what he's done, and we should absolutely start talking about Shai and why he's been so good this year. I have no case against you, really. It's just that the case for Jokic for me is that I have never seen somebody dominate a game offensively at this level in my life.
Yeah. I feel like people are going to take this. When I watch Jokic, I watch him and I say, that's the best player in the game. When I watch SGA, I watch and go, man, this is one of the best players in the game. I don't watch him necessarily.
When I watch Jokic, I say that is the best offensive player that I've seen play basketball.
Yeah, it's crazy.
At this, there's a case for that right now.
Yep.
Like LeBron's unbelievable. And I don't mean to discredit LeBron in any way, shape, or form. LeBron at his peak is the only other guy where I would really truly make this case for, right? Like LeBron at his peak was, something like 27, 8-8, 38-7. Or, he had a season with the Lakers where he was 38-6. He had another season with the Lakers where he was 25-8-10 and led the league in assists that year, right? LeBron is unbelievable. Stephen Curry's another example of a guy that just like completely broke the game basketball wise on offense, right? With the way that he spaced the court. Steve Nash is another guy that's been unbelievable, incredible. I don't mean to take anything away from those guys, but the way that Jokic utterly controls the game from the perimeter, from the mid post, from the block, like wherever he wants to do it, he can control the game from in transition. From any spot on the court, he can control the game. LeBron could do that too, by the way. Like, I'm not saying that LeBron couldn't do that, but it just feels different when I watch Jokic do it.
Yeah, I agree. SGA, incredible. I think the thing I love watching with him offensively is I'm on this like kick right now with NBA offensive players and the bump they give defenders to create space and then what they do with that space. So I love watching a game and watching defenders either that can hold up against that bump or an offensive player that gives that bump into the step back, into a pull up, into attacking that space, into a shot fake, whatever. SGA has all of that stuff. And he's not a guy that just stands out physically, right? Like a lot of the guys we've talked about, like Tatum has these unbelievable shoulders and Giannis is just a freak, right? Like he's the Greek freak for a reason. Even Jokic, not super athletic, but he is a monster that you cannot move and that can move you. SGA, mountain of a man. SGA doesn't look like that, but his practical play strength and balance impresses me every time I watch him because he will bump you and then he'll hit the step back or he'll attack you off of it. Or he's got a little bit of DeMar DeRozan where he'll give you these shot fakes and stuff like that. Like he has taken over the best mid-range game in the NBA for me. And what's crazy is I was looking at his drive numbers in a recent watch. He's good going both directions. Which way do you force him, right? Like, do you force him to your right, to his left? Doesn't matter because he's good going both. And then to your point, I think it'd be a fun conversation. Like, how valuable is that defensive role? But he's elite at it. He's elite at that role. The role he has within that infrastructure of the Thunder defense, he is really, really good at it. And so I do want to give him credit for that. Even though I don't think he's the most impactful Thunder defender, he's still an important cog on one of the best defensive teams we've seen in this league.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Shai is also, to me, like the best primary, I have to go get you a bucket right now, shot creator among guards in the league. He is the guy, like if I needed somebody to break down a defender one-on-one, get me a bucket, that is the guy I would pick.
Him versus, it would be him or a healthy Luka, right? Like, is that the conversation you think? Is that even a conversation for you?
If it's purely about that player getting me a bucket, I think Shai is ahead of Luka in that regard. If it's about making the right decision and like kicking out and passing, I think there's a case for Luka for sure there because Luka's ability to kick out and make the right decision and read the court is probably a little bit better than Shai.
Manipulate defenders. Sure. Yeah. I think I agree with that. I think so.
But I think Shai is just I think he's a better shooter at the end of the day than what Luka is. Shai is a very real off-ball defender. Like he is extremely capable of rotating down and blocking shots. He's very good at closing out and getting block shots. He is excellent at shooting passing lanes. He transitions defense to offensive super high level. He plays at a level that I've rarely seen guards hit, honestly. And I think that there is a absolute real chance that Shai wins MVP this year based on the final 20 games of the year. Look, I have no, if you want to pick Shai at MVP, I have no beef with you. Like I truly can't make an argument against Shai. He is, again, to me, if I had to get one bucket from one guy at the end of a game, it'd be him. But the way that Jokic dominates the game, every single like second of it that he's on the court, is just so different to me. It's unbelievable. He is a remarkable player. And look, like Shai gets to the line a ton. Shai is a guy that consistently gets paint touches in a way that very few other players do in the league. He is an unbelievable 3-level scorer across which, again, like that's the other thing too with this. Shai's ability to finish at the basket, his ability to get to the mid-range shot, the improved ability to knock down threes at volume. Like he is taking his highest percentage of shots from behind the arc this year and making them at a 37% clip. He is making 6 threes a game at a 37% clip. That's a massive, massive jump for where he's been previously. I still think there's a massive difference between the two offensively in terms of the way that they impact the game. I just do.
Just real quick, again, I don't know why, but I kind of stumbled on per 36 for this one. For whatever reason, he averages the most points at 34. You gave the shooting percentages, over 50% from the field, gets to the line almost 10 times per 36, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. He actually averages the most stocks per 36 of anybody we're going to talk about other than Jaren Jackson Jr. And so to the defensive playmaking conversation, that's really, really impressive. And it shows out in the actual numbers.
But here's the thing on defense. He is allowed to do that by the fact that they have Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein behind him. And they have Lou Dort and J-Dub and Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso in front of him guarding the best players on the opposing team. Like that is a big, big difference. Shai has like the easiest, I would argue, defensive responsibility on that team. And he excels at it and he is great at it in help defense. And his ability to fly around the court, use his length, use his anticipation is part of what makes their defense so good. It is also slightly easier than what the other guys are tasked with doing, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree with all of that.
So I've Jokic at 1A. I've Shai at 1B. Honestly, if you want to have them be co-MVPs, I don't really care.
For what it's worth,
that's a completely rational thing to me. If you want to have them be co-MVPs,
I think we're in the minorities here. For one, Bontemps, whatever straw poll thing he does, SGA was leading by like a 21st place vote margin. I think that was a couple weeks ago now. I think
honestly not that big.
No,
like for those straw polls, that's like pretty small.
It was 100 votes. No, it maybe it was 30. I think it was 30. But anyway, I just think SGA is going to win unless I think what gets Jokic close. I think what people are going to hold on to is the difference between the Thunder and the Nuggets, even though the Nuggets has closed that gap in terms of being second in the West. But to your point, the final 20 games mattering, if Denver gets it to say 5 games, I think that really plays into Jokic's hands. Obviously, if they lose a few games and let's say they end up 4th or 5th, where they're only a game and a half up, I think that's going to I think people will use that as their tiebreaker. And I'm not saying people are wrong. I listen, as hard as this is for me to do, who am I to judge somebody else's process? I may disagree with you, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. So I just could see that being where people go and how they ultimately justify breaking the tie. And maybe it's warranted. Maybe it is justified doing it that way. I think SGA is going to win barring something crazy here.